So we started?
Not the first time it's been started that way.
So I've been following your channel,
Thank you.
and I've seen your interview with Michelle Kempema
hmm
and John O from TSG.
Yeah, John and Badakula.
Yes, and of course Lionel Strang's
Yeah, he's the one
interview.
who threw me over
Oh,
your fence to knock on your front door.
and Aaron. That's the first time I've talked to Aaron before and emailed, but he's done a number of reviews for me with Model Railroad News. But that's the first time I've actually seen Aaron, I think. So that was very cool. It's like, oh, that's what he looks like. Yeah.
We were talking, and I think that might be just the first time he's showed his face besides a couple things that aren't related to trains. So
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
the officially unofficial face reveal. We're making it.
Well, good deal. Good deal.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, so ask me questions. I mean,
okay.
you are getting the info out of everybody else. So yeah, I'm ready. I've done my homework.
You better be prepared.
I think I am. I'm ready.
Okay. So I kind of start all the interviews the same way, and it's very awkward intro, but we skipped that. We're doing good already.
Okay.
So, how'd you get into the hobby?
Well, did we already introduce me? Do we know who I am?
Oh, this is going to be very awkward to edit together in a way that makes sense. Oh my gosh.
Well, my name's on there. Yeah, I'm
Uh-huh.
Tony. I'm Tony Cook, and I am currently the editor of Model Railroad News magazine, which is a monthly, and I'm co-editor of HO Collector Quarterly, and those are both White River Productions publications. And so we'll jump from there to how did I get into the hobby? You know, the hobby was always with me. That my dad was both a prototype rail photographer and a model railroader. So to me, that's just always been. I mean, it's like anything else that, oh, yeah, I always had train stuff. From the time I was a little kid, I always went along on weekend trips to go watch trains in late 60s, 1970s, and on as I grew up. And so, yeah, Dad and I always did train trips. And then he painted and decaled mostly HO stuff. So I was his helper in the model railroad stuff as well. And so, yeah, it's always been kind of my thing. That
Cool.
yeah.
So, did you start with the set, or did your dad kind of have this whole layout built?
Well, I know you started with a board.
I started with the plywood board.
Yeah, with the plywood board. And I really like that because that's that. I mean, you know, it's like that is a great way to start, but I think you're the first person I've ever heard that didn't get the quote unquote train set or somebody gave them some trains or so. Yeah, I think that's a great story that, yeah, it's like, no, my folks gave me a sheet of plywood. It's like,
that's the way to do it.
that's a way to get started. There you go.
Yeah.
We're starting with the foundation. I did get train sets from the time I was a little bitty kid. I don't remember a lot of them because I was like, 2 or 3 years old, but I see pictures of me at Christmas holding like, a Tyco F unit or something that was mine, but I guess, I could barely walk, but was running HO. So yeah, I had the typical 4x8 oval layout in my grandmother's basement. I grew up in central Illinois, and I had a layout there that was kind of my thing to build models and run trains. And it was a combination of Athearn and like Bachmann and Tyco and Atlas, Lionel, HO from the time. So basically any and everything I could find. In those days, you had like KB Toys and Hobbies in the shopping malls, places like Woolco, which was kind of like a Walmart or Target, that they would have a train section. And so whatever kind of stuff I would find or put together, there. Plus Dad took me to, official legitimate hobby shops a lot on the weekend too. So I had kind of a mix of everything. And that was my model railroad as a kid. And I had it into the early 80s.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously you've probably developed a little bit as far as to what you like to model. So, I mean, what's it like now?
I've always been HO, and I still to this day, basically HO is my primary interest, but I am more of a collector than an operator or even a builder. So, I mean, I have a house full of trains, but a lot of them are things like, oh no, no, don't take it out of the box. Yeah, or
Yeah.
I had it out of the box once to look at it, but hey, we can't run it, or no, I can't. We're not going to put it together. It's like, come
Yeah.
on. So there are things that I do where that I will get hands on and do things, but for the most part, the thing I enjoy the most is the history of the hobby, the companies that have been involved in the hobbies, the trains they've made, and then collecting those things. And that's where HO Collector's been around for, it goes into its 5th year next year.
Hmm.
And then Model Railroad News is 25 years old this year, and I've been with it. Next year will be my 10th anniversary of being the editor for that. And it covers, as you know, new product announcements and reviews of new products. And then HO Collector talks about vintage and old HO. So that all kind of works into what I find to be the fun part of the hobby, and that's getting a new model, learning about the prototype, how close is the model to the prototype, what are some of the differences, how many of these cabooses did they own, or where did these boxcars operate, and that kind of stuff is what I find to be fascinating, is combining that prototype and the models together. And then again, the models a lot of times for me are just collectible things that I enjoy having. But I do have, as part of the working for Model Railroad News, because I do some of the evaluation on like speed testing and the pull test to see how many ounces a locomotive can pull and those kind of things. I
Hmm.
have a test track set up, but because we work in different scales, it's basically just a green sheet of 4x8 plywood, and then it always is changing with either a loop of HO track, or then I might put in scale track down, or depending on what I'm working with, it's like, okay, take that apart because now we're going to test some in scale locomotives and send those off to the reviewers.
Okay.
So yeah, I can run trains, and I'm in my office here in my house. I work from home. I live in the northwestern part of Missouri, about an hour north of Kansas City.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I have my test loop is just to my left. So as I'm working during the day, I can have a train running in the background as I'm doing stuff. Although I forget about it a lot. And like, I'll take off to run to the post office or go into the kitchen to do something. And then I come back in and it's like, hey, whoa. And, it's derailed itself or done so because I walked away from it. But
Well, I
that
mean,
happens.
that's not a bad situation to be in.
No, it is a lot of fun. Yeah, I've worked
Yeah.
from home since 2012. I used to work at Union Station in Kansas City, which is the second largest train station in the U.S. And I was their marketing and public relations person. The train station itself still serves Amtrak for St. Louis to Kansas City trains, and then the chief comes through from Chicago to Los Angeles. So Amtrak is in the station, but then the station was remodeled in '99 by Missouri and Kansas getting together and putting a tax like referendum to fund it. And it's a science museum, like an IMAX theater, a planetarium. It gets traveling exhibits on like dinosaurs and things. So I was working in a train station, but I was probably like on TV telling people about a new dinosaur exhibit. So it
Okay.
was trains, but it wasn't. And we do have, while I was there, we helped set up a model railroad experience, which was 8,000 square feet of trains. Nothing like Michelle Kempema's amazing
Yeah.
place in Greeley, which you've got to get out and see.
One day.
It is so cool. Yeah, Lionel and I went out there last year, and I think we got there in the morning, and our intention was, oh, we'd spend an hour or so, and then maybe go to lunch with Michelle. We spent the whole day. I
Wow.
mean, it was so cool. There was so much to see that, yeah, a day didn't seem to be enough. That, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a bucket list thing that you got to do. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, what do you collect? I see some Broadway limited boxes and some Rapido boxes. What kind of stuff do you collect? And then I guess what kind of stuff do you pull out of the box and run a little bit?
The stuff behind me, right behind me here, are 35 millimeter slides. That's one of the things I do for White River. This is Kevin U. Daly's collection of railroad slides, and for our books and our magazines, I scan the slides, then we archive them to an online resource that editors and book authors can go looking for pictures. So if somebody says, I need Amtrak locomotives on the Empire Builder in Montana from the 1980s. You can put all that stuff in, and boom, you'll get a list of here's all the pictures we have.
Wow.
So that's slides I'm working on there. And yeah, that's a stack of Broadway Limited F units. And those are going to be, I think, January's cover of Model Railroad News, although we're still waiting to see that new Bachmann Charger is circling as well. But F
Okay.
units is our theme right now for January, and those are heading out to uh, my co-editor at HO Collector, Tony Lucio, also works on Model Railroad News, and he's doing some F units for me. And then Aaron Adams, that's in
Yeah.
Washington, he's doing the Walthers executive F units, like
Mhm.
the Norfolk Southern and those that run today, that he's got all of those and working on them. So a lot of this is kind of my work area as the stuff comes in and gets unpackaged. And then Shane Mason lives about a half an hour south of me. He's my assistant editor, and he does photography work. He does some of the electronic stuff in DCC. He helps with those ends of reviews. He's a big in scale guy. So this stuff gets stacked up, and does it need to go to Shane for pictures, or do I need to let somebody know I've got this, and this, and it's sending out to him this week? So that's just kind of my workbench back there. Although I do see there's some old junk back there too, of things that have come in for my collection as well.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I do. I mean, there's things that I do review, or again, will I've got a little digital thing that'll tell you the scale speed in like HO or N,
Yeah.
and I do some of that legwork for some of the reviewers that don't have some of that equipment. And then we also do photography at this end for some of the people that can review but don't have the whole setup for pictures. So that kind of prep work, I guess, is kind of what I help put together here at my office. And
So,
then I do the layout. I do the actual in Adobe InDesign. I lay out both magazines, and
okay.
that's all done here, then uploaded to our printer.
So we have that for your job, but what do you like personally? Like, what's
Oh,
your preference? Like, what stuff do you collect? What stuff do you operate a bit?
I tend to get I I go all over the place. I know you've talked about how you have a lot of Union Pacific, but
Hmm.
you live out in Pennsylvania, but you're
Yeah.
the only guy without a Pennsylvania locomotive
Uh-huh.
and this kind of stuff. I what will hit me is whether it's an article we're doing, maybe for HO Collector, I'll think, "Oh yeah, who made those? And do I have one, or do I have all four of the road names they made?" That I kind of get on kicks where something will hit me, or I go through old catalogs or magazines and think, oh wow, I'd forgotten this was made, I wonder if I can find one. And
Okay.
that usually leads you to, oh, and they also did this, and yeah, you end up getting a stack of stuff that's coming in. So all over the place. On one day it may be I'm collecting kits, another day it might be freight cars. That it just depends on kind of what caught my attention. And then you go on eBay or looking around on Facebook, and I see that a lot. There's so many groups on Facebook for older model trains,
Hmm.
and I'll see guys posting and asking questions, and it's like, oh yeah, I have one of those, or yeah, I know what he's talking about, but here's what that really is. And I'll go get the catalog or a picture and say, here you go, this is it. It's actually older or newer than that. Or so that I find fun, is kind of that detective work of,
Okay.
I have this, but who made it and where does it come from? And the only thing it says on the bottom is Yugoslavia. It's like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah.
So, again, like a personal preference question. What brands do you like? Like, what kind of yeah, what kind
of
of brands?
of the new stuff, I mean, a lot of that, I think it depends on, it's more what it is.
Okay.
That, I don't really have a loyalty like, oh, I'd never buy this, or I only like to buy that.
Hmm.
As I'm a collector, I don't always go for the DCC sound, because again, it's like, well, it may never run, or I may
Yeah.
just run it a few times. Like, for example, Athearn recently brought out all those neat new cabooses
Hmm.
in the Genesis line, and I got the Burlington, Santa Fe, and Union Pacific from my friends up at Spring Creek in Nebraska. And I didn't get the sound versions of those because I'm more interested in just having,
Yeah.
the caboose. So I'll get those. And I was actually talking to our assistant editor, Harry Wong at Road Model Craftsman about these, and he was mentioning some details and things. Says, I got them this week, and I've been so busy. Here it is already Thursday. They've been sitting here, and I haven't taken any of them out of the box. Yet I was looking forward to these for weeks. It's like, I got to stop and open these and look at them. But so you tend to get kind of sidetracked. Or
wow, I
at
think this
least
is
I
the
do.
longest we've ever gone in an interview without mentioning Jason Shron.
Hey, yeah, what about that? Oh my gosh.
Mm.
When are you going to get Jason on the show? I emailed him the other day.
Ah,
About you. Oh yeah, yes, I did.
okay.
After I saw the interview with Lionel Strang, I said, Jason, this guy I think is your biggest fan. I said, you've got to do his show. Jason's a great guy. I mean,
Yeah.
and his company, you really see the fun. He's, a lot of the people in the hobby, you see that they have an interest in it too. It's not just a business. In fact, I really don't know. You have to think about people that are in it just because it's a job. That the hobby tends to always attract people that are, well, I got into it because I love trains or I wanted this or that made. But yeah, Jason especially. I mean, from the passenger car in his basement to what he's got a bus, he's got an RDC. I mean, that's crazy. But
And there's people who turn down jobs working to support the hobby because they think that's going to turn them down. Jason just hops on a plane to China and he's like, this is the greatest thing in the world. He's so enthusiastic about everything.
He is. He really is. Did you see in the train world, Train World in New York, there, we did that convention, like virtual convention or NMR around that time. And his thing was great, where he sat down and showed all the models he's working on and, his talk and stuff. I think out of that whole night of all of us guys talking, he comes on and is just like, bam, in your face, and is so excited. But that's fun.
And he didn't announce anything new because they kind of announce everything on their own, but you don't even realize it. He's just showing off this ski train and he's happy. You don't even know what he's talking about. You're just happy too.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that is cool. Yeah. And those ski train cars are beautiful. I bought the one set that was an exclusive to Spring Creek. I got it. And then I have the set of the other three, and the locomotives I think I saw are either on the water, as they call it, from China or soon. So yeah, that's going to be a wonderful set.
So what happened between when you were saying you had the taco train under the tree to now being an editor for White River Productions? There's obviously, a bit of distance in there. Like what, if you can sum up the years of that time into like 20 minutes, what would you do?
I'm not as old as Lionel Strang, so I don't have that much history to talk about. When Lionel first started doing the podcast, they were still talking about driving the Gold Spike and the Transcontinental Railroad. Well, let me think. From being a rail fan kind of thing, the typical, through college, I actually got into broadcasting, and that was what my education went towards, was business and marketing and broadcasting. I worked in radio for a while. One of my other interests is movies and television, and I worked for AMC Theaters for a number of years, and that's how I actually got to Union Station. Is with AMC, I'd gone from St. Louis to Denver to Kansas City. And whenever they had projects and things, I would get moved around. So when the Union Station opportunity came up to be part of it was their extreme screen for their like big IMAX theater. It's like, well, there's only one of those. They can't move me because I think I still have stuff boxed from St. Louis that never got unboxed in Denver. And now I'm in Kansas City. So I took the opportunity to go to Union Station, and then I was there for 12 years. And I've also worked at a hobby shop here in Kansas City. I used to do that on my days off at Doc's Caboose down in the West Bottoms here in Kansas City. Trains have always kind of been, I don't think I've ever really gotten away from, there's always up and down periods, I think, but the hobby's never, whether it's prototype, railroading, rail fanning, or models, I've always stayed connected for the most part in some way or another.
Yeah. So how did you get into editing? Or that's probably not the right term. How did you join White River Productions?
I had started in, and it's 20 years old this year, and I hadn't even realized it, but someone posted on Facebook mentioning that it was now 20 years old. I started a site in 2000 for Tycho
Okay.
because in those early days of the internet, you'd go looking for things and you'd find that, oh, yeah, somebody's made a whole site for, cars
Yeah.
or, whatever. It's like, wow, I can't believe there's not something out there that would fill in some of the things that I don't know, don't remember, because this was also before eBay. So you couldn't just get on and see 500 examples of this or that. It's like, well, I think they made this and I don't know when that came out. So
Hmm.
both the internet and eBay are hitting at about the same time. And I wanted something to help document older trains. And I started with Tycho, and I'd pick up catalogs when I could find them and scanning information out of those, and started doing websites for that. And then that expanded to Bachman and AHM and Lionel and all these different companies was under my HO resource. And that's how some of that attention, I think, is how I end up over at with Model Railroad News. And then White River purchased the magazine about a year, less than a year after I'd started. And it's owned by Kevin and Nadine Udaly, and they're originally from Central Missouri here. They're down in Texas now, but I've been with them ever since. And like I say, we started the one quarterly thing. And basically it's all, it's a lot of things self-taught. I mean, when I wanted a website, it was, well, other people do this, and how do you do this?
Hmm.
And I think it was Tripod or something was the company that I started using for the Tycho site. And then the same with the magazine editing was Photoshop and InDesign. And again, well, let me see this file for, like, how did you put this here and move this text there? And how do you get this to go around the picture like that? And so a lot of it is, yeah, I didn't, none of that school, because when I was in school, none of those things existed to teach you.
Okay. Cool. Well, and a little bit of an unrelated question to what we're talking about right now, but so I talked about this with Lionel, and I kind of thought it would be nice to ask you. We were talking about how Jason Shron, we'll add that to the Jason Shron counter. Um, he was saying that he thinks Steam is dying out because all of the people who grew up with that as kids are kind of passing away. So I brought up, I'm like, well, the younger generation, we grew up with steam on the tourist railroads, and that was pushed to us really hard. So there's a lot of kids, I feel like, who are in love with steam, but a lot of them can't really afford super detailed Jason Tron models. But I feel like, as the younger generation moves up, there's definitely going to be bigger a market for it then than it is now. What do you think?
I am, I'm surprised when I heard you say that. I thought that was very interesting. And that is because that connection, as you say, wouldn't be there because steam basically is gone by the late 50s.
Yeah.
I never saw steam engines either, that I'm about 10, 12 years past that as far as what I can remember.
Mhm.
Uh, but as a little kid, I can remember in hobby shops, older guys saying to me, and this would have been when I was like, 6, 7 years old. Oh, model railroading's, it's done because steam's gone. This diesel stuff, nobody's going to care. That, too bad for you, kid. And that's kind of was that attitude. And I've had an interest in steam and some of the narrow gauge stuff out in Colorado. And like my assistant editor Shane Mason's a big narrow gauge guy. He took his girlfriend out and they rode Durango and Silverton, I believe it was last summer. And so he has that interest in steam from both Union Pacifics, like seeing the Challenger. We went out and chased the big boy when it was out last year. So yeah, there is that. We never saw it in regular service, but there is that appeal to steam locomotives. And
Yeah.
I think that's, you really hit upon something there when you mentioned that, yeah, the whole excursion thing puts steam in your mind that otherwise you think would not. But I think steam, because of what it is, will never go away. It's same as early diesels. Well, these Broadway F units are new tooling. It's like, really? Another F unit? There's
Yeah.
not enough F units in the world? But
Exactly.
no, because again, it's an F unit. That's a classic. So yeah, I think steam will always have a place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, maybe even more so because you can't really see it, same as dinosaurs. Well, I can't go to the zoo and see them, but it's an
Yeah.
intriguing thing and I want to know more. Yeah.
And that's what you look at. You go on YouTube and you do a search. All the 7-year-olds on YouTube who have made a video about the Bachmann Mogul, because that's a budget model, and
Hmm.
so many people own it. So I feel like they're gonna age up, and then maybe it'll go to Athearn and Broadway Limited, and then by then Jason Shron will have like 30 steam engines all in stock, and then we'll be getting rich off of that. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I think so. But yeah, no, there's so much steam now today too. You were so lucky that even the budget price things, as you mentioned, like the stuff that Bachman makes, it's not even Spectrum, but their standard line.
Yeah.
They all run well. They look good, because that was always that was a tough thing. As a kid, there was a lot of steam out there,
Hmm.
but a lot of it didn't run, and it was
Yeah.
really cantankerous. And like, I was about 10 years old when the big American Freedom Train was out from Lionel HO, and it was made by Bachman. And the original runs of those were kind of finicky pieces, but they were so cool. It's like something you wanted, but then there'd be that disappointment of, well, it didn't. But now, yeah, they all run so much better that they really are fantastic. Now, you said, I was going to call you on that. I heard on one of your interviews you tried to say, what was it, Broadway, you thought had a 1 in 3
A one
didn't
in
work?
three failure rate.
I've never seen that.
You've never had a Bachman model fail. Now,
Bachman or Broadway?
Broadway. I'm sorry, Broadway. Really?
No, no. In fact, I got a couple of Broadway E units over here right now on an SP train. I just got that P5 electric in Great Northern, and
Mhm.
the stack of these F units I've been going through one at a time, doing photography and testing on those. And
Mhm.
no, in fact, I can't think the last time. I think we had a GG1 that got damaged in the mail going to a reviewer. But again, yeah, that's why it didn't work. But no, I haven't. Yeah, that's one we'd have to do a showdown on, you know,
Well,
get them out of the box and put them on the track. That
mhm.
we should do that with like a stack of these, and we'll see what the success rate is. Because yeah, I haven't seen that. No.
well, Ken Silvestri, if you're watching, I love you and I'd love to interview you. However, let me just speak my mind because so a lot of the premise for what I said, and I'm not the one who came up with that. There's a couple guys in my community, and that came out in a live chat with oh my God, what's his name? John Abaticola and Dave Sparky 107 107. And Dave had a big boy, and it had the same problem that my Challenger had, where it would just stop and the light would start flashing and it wouldn't move. It would make sounds though. And so I had one Challenger like that. I exchanged it with my hobby shop for a new one. The second one had that same problem, and it turned out to be a motor issue when I sent it down. So they gave me a new type of decoder, updated the decoder, new type of motor, and it works fine now. And the only other model was maybe like a Paragon 2 something. And I have a friend in college and he had problems with that, the decoders just keeping not working. So my sample size is extremely
Okay.
small.
I
So
was gonna say, yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, wow, I must be the luckiest person, because yeah, no, not my case. And
oh,
as you can see there, I go through a lot of it. So no,
that's why I don't go
but
around preaching that.
and you never know. There's always, I get emails and letters from different people that have had, again, problems with things or
Yeah.
odd experiences, and it's really easy to see that and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I had this terrible meal at whatever restaurant, I'm never going back there again. It's like, oh no, that's a great place to eat. You must have been there on the one bad day.
Uh,
But yeah, so
that's what I've only said that like one or two times before. And every time after I say it, I always establish the point. I'm like, my sample size is like 2 engines. So anything really can happen. You have a problem with any manufacturer.
oh yeah.
Ken Silvestri, I love you. Email me, So,
Ken is a great guy. And
yeah.
all of them, I do find that customer service, I think we all get used to in other things in our life, whether it's trying to get service for, whatever,
Yeah.
that your call is very important to us. Please hold. And I really find in the hobby, because you have more enthusiasts and people interested, that my experience on customer service is excellent. And I don't tell people, whether it's mail order stuff that I'm buying or service on a product, I never say, "Hi, I'm Tony Cook, the editor of Model Railroad News. So I'm sending you this
Yeah.
and I need it fixed." And, I could say, it's like, so no one knows who,
Uh,
they don't put that together. So I have great experience with things. So, and again, it's not being done of, well, we want to make sure this is good so we look good, that they wouldn't even know. So yeah, I don't know. But
the
yeah,
two.
that's what I think we're gonna have to do, a throwdown. I'm gonna get all those F units out, because not all. What have I got there? Two, four. I have 5 of those, and I've got a Rio Grande that I got out first that I'm going to be testing. So that we're going to have to do a follow up,
But
and
don't
I
get
will
me
tell you.
wrong, my sample size is like not a lot of engines, which is why every time I say that, I back it up and I say sample size is really small. And every time, the second thing I say is I buy their models all the time. So that's why I'm not trying to take a dig at them in any way. I'm just
Well,
sharing
there
my
you
knowledge.
go.
But
There
the
you
reason
go.
I do is my service experience with them was literally amazing. I get the customer service lady. She's super nice. I get my code. I send it to Florida. There's the queue, which is where anywhere you're gonna go, there's gonna be a queue. So then they ship it back. Inside, it's all fixed. It's all nice. I have a paper says the guy's name. It's a checklist that it runs and all that. Then I have a paper that says everything they did, everything that was wrong with it. It's very honest. It's very quick. It's free. All you need to do is pay for shipping if it's under warranty. And it was a good experience.
That's
And I haven't
awesome.
had problems since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It was much different when I was a little kid, and it would
Uh,
be a Tyco single truck powered whatever, that after a few trips around the track would start to heat up, and the traction tires would crack and come off, and it would smell like ozone in the house and burn up, and the headlight always seemed to work. But yeah, I have more people that write me and say, "How can I make this like Tyco piece run?" Or, "I had this when I was a kid and I want one, but I want it to run." And a
don't.
lot of times, like, well, they never really did that one. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's what it was. It was kind of like that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm not fluent in the history of White River Productions at all, but is this something that you started, or is it something that, like, with a group of guys, or how did you get involved?
White River Productions was started in the early 1990s
Uh,
by Kevin and Nadine Udaly. Kevin did a Missouri Pacific Motive Power book and some Santa Fe Motive Power annuals. So he was in the book end of things. And then the company also does about 20 of the different historical society publications. Um, I work as a contract person for White River, so I produce the 2 magazines, work from home.
hmm,
White River does hardcover books. We now have 9 magazines, I think, from Narrow Gauge Gazette to Passenger Train Journal, Railfan and Railroad, O Scale Trains. I mean, if you go to shop.whiteriverproductions.com,
yeah,
you
there's
can
a
see
lot of them.
you can see the whole list of things, and it just keeps growing. I think when they took over Model Railroad News in 2012, I think we had Railroads Illustrated and maybe Passenger Train Journal. So I'm like, this might have been the 3rd title, and now there's 9 in. So
Oh,
it's amazing. So
yeah,
the interest in train stuff is incredible.
it is. So, I don't know. Lionel always asks this question, so full credit to Lionel. But do you think this hobby is growing or dying? What do you think? It's obviously growing, but I mean, the question is asked a lot, which I don't get, but
And
I don't know.
and again, going back to what I said about Steam, I remember that as a kid, that guys that were into Steam, and Steam was in about 10 years gone, saying, there'll
Yeah.
be no model railroad stuff when you get older, because no one's going to want to do diesels. Steam is what's of interest. And I see that in doing research, looking back through old copies of Railroad Model Craftsman or Model Railroad Magazine. You'll see those stories come up a lot about, like, what's the future of the hobby? I don't know why they're, and maybe that's with everything. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
maybe RC cars, maybe those people stew and worry themselves into panics over, is the RC car world going to disappear? You know,
Mm.
I don't know, but it seems like for model railroading, I don't know why that always tends to be a topic,
Yeah.
but it has almost always been a topic in my lifetime.
Mm.
So in 50 years, it's been threatening to dry up and blow away and has never happened. So I don't think so. I think, especially with the things I've seen on the internet, like you doing this YouTube channel, Lionel doing the podcasts, all the stuff on Facebook. I mean, what I see now, I got serious in collecting older trains in the 90s, and
Mm.
the only outlet was to hope maybe every once in a while to walk into a hobby shop and they might have a box of old trains that somebody,
Mm.
brought in, or there were train shows you could go to, but total hit and miss. And again, suddenly with eBay and like Facebook pages and things, now when I think how easy it is to say, I'd like to get a run of Tyco catalogs from 1960 to 1980, I probably
Mm.
put it together in about 6 months. Whereas there was a time of, I've never even seen some of those years. I assume they exist, but where would I get them?
Yeah.
So I think the internet and our communication has done so much that it's linking a lot of us together, which then, it's enriching and making so much more of the hobby. So
Absolutely.
I would say that the hobby is stronger, if not bigger, but there's again more activity that we're getting to share and do things more than we ever did before. I mean, there was nobody for me to talk to about some of these older trains 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yet now I can make a cup of coffee in the morning, sit down, put on Facebook, and
Mm.
go through 2 or 3 different pages of Athearn or AHM or Bachmann stuff and
Mm.
see guys saying, I have this steam locomotive. Was this the first time they brought it out? And how come it has this? And when did they do that? And I mean, again, the discussions are just there. Whereas before it's like, wonder if anybody else ever noticed this or cares. And
Yeah.
like, well, you won't know.
Well, I think the only reason that that question keeps coming up is to entertain the foamers. So,
I think so.
yeah.
And it's the same as, well, look at Amtrak is 50 years old next year.
Mm.
And when the government took over private passenger trains in 71, the thought was, okay, this is just how they're going to
Yeah.
do this, but in 4 or 5 years, there will be no passenger trains. And here we are 50 years later celebrating a half century of Amtrak.
Mm.
So that's another, oh yeah, passenger trains they're a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Well, they have been since the 50s almost. Yeah.
So, could we talk models for a second? So, what, in your opinion, if you could give a top three for detail, excluding brass? Because I mean, I don't know, that's unfair.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, plastic anymore, though, that's one of the neatest things about today's plastic
Yeah.
is that used to be, and that's one of the reasons why the brass market is not nearly what it was,
Mhm.
is that plastic is so caught up. Things I've seen this year that I was really impressed with, the big Tangent 86-foot high cube boxcar.
Yeah.
I think I had on the cover of August or September's Model Railroad News. Um, I thought that was a really neat model. Once I get them open, I'm pretty sure I'm going to like these Athearn cabooses, but
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to those yet. Um, but yeah, I continue to be impressed with, Jason Shron count,
Uh huh. Yeah.
the,
We'll add
the,
that down.
the in-scale Draper tapers that I got samples of those recently, and Shane Mason has both of those right now that he's doing a review of, and I was really impressed how cool they looked. And he said they run great. The sound has been awesome. So,
Cool.
oh, and another Jason Strong count. Click
Yeah,
it
man.
up again. The dining cars that he brought out recently. My buddy Chris Atkins down in Texas just reviewed the Northern Pacific car, and I did the layout for that review this week. And I
Mhm.
think I have an Illinois Central one. And boy, those are the passenger cars that have the plates and like
Yeah. The
silverware on the
silverware
table.
and
Yeah.
the ring around the plate. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it truly incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Those cars are amazing. Yeah.
So, if I had to give my three in detail, because I usually judge detail by like locomotives, because you can kind of, I don't know, I feel like some companies put more effort into certain freight cars that they know are going to be popular. But what really judges their standards, their locomotives. There's probably people that would disagree, but that's kind of how I look at it. For me, it's obviously Jason Shron, Jason Shron, Jason Shron. Gonna give myself some fun counting the Jason Shron counter.
Right.
Um, but so it's Rapido, and then Broadway Limited. All their steam is die cast. I don't have any of their diesels, but their steam is amazing. Very nice. The sound. There's people who hate the sound. I'm like, in my opinion, it's great. And then third for me, it's just Athearn. Like they put a lot of effort into what they do. So it's
Athearn
amazing
is,
to be
yeah,
putting more.
lots of fun. Athearn's the new brand manager, Jim Wigan, does the Athearn Train Tuesday shows. And I've been on, I can't remember, I don't think I've been on with him yet. I've been on with Matt and Janik and then Chris before then. But yeah, Athearn's a great, I mean, they're one of the pioneer companies in HO, and they're just a standard, and then continue to be at the forefront of things today. So
Uh,
yeah, Athearn stuff is always awesome.
and scale trains too, they're emerging.
Oh, that's a great, isn't that a fun company?
Yeah.
The announcement of it, it's going on about 5 years ago, I guess. But at one of the, I think it was Train Fest in Milwaukee, that I got to go to an event where they announced it and they showed the big red boxed Union Pacific turbines for the first time. And it was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
incredible. So again, there's a fun one that Shane Wilson and the group of people running Scale Trains, again, are enthusiasts as much as anything, and it shows in
Uh-huh.
the products. Yeah. We've got their SD45s are on the cover of November's Model Railroad News that I just sent to press on Tuesday. And my friend Andy Dorsch up in Wisconsin did the reviews on those. He has a channel for his Chicago Northwestern Model Railroad, and he does a lot of modeling. Neat stuff. I got to find you on Facebook. I think I looked to see if you're what NorDel Club. I looked for it on Facebook, and I don't know if I found it.
So I don't do anything under my name. I do it under
Oh,
my Model Railroad Club's name. Um, it's going to be rebranded soon. I don't know. I don't want to rebrand to disassociate because I still want to keep connected, but I want to like Drew at NorDel is one that I don't know if you know Keith from Humanity Junction, but he recommended that, and I think
uh,
that would be good. So Facebook is Northern Delaware Model Railroad Club. It's all written
oh,
out.
oh, okay. I have to look for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So, what made you want to start doing this? To
Um,
do a channel, and I mean, what had you seen things and think, well, I want to try that, or like, what did you feel like you had to, I need to say this, or I got to get out here and make my statement.
well,
What?
everybody's seen YouTube videos before. It started during COVID. I forget when. It was probably like mid-June, and I was just like, I want to do this. So I did, and it started out posting videos about the club and like rail fan videos, and then I kind of ran out of at-home content. There's really only so much you can do when you're fitting to such a strict theme.
Right.
So I kind of just started putting my face out there. I interviewed John, and then that kind of caught on, and now it's kind of less club-based and more Drew-based. So
Mhm.
we'll see where this goes because it's
It,
changed a
and
lot in 2 months. So
and it's fun stuff though.
yeah.
This to me is something, again, as a kid I never knew
Mhm.
the people behind a lot of those companies,
Yeah.
or the things they were interested in, or how some of these products got to market, or why they made what they made.
Uh-huh.
That and that's such a fascinating, I think that's why I have that interest in history, is I wonder how this got done, or where did this company come from, or where did they go that they made this and this and disappeared, or it returned under this name.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't have that information, that other than what would be in the magazines once a month, that was it. There was no,
Mhm.
well, I don't know who that person is, or I wouldn't even be able to put a face and a name with a lot of companies as a kid because I didn't know. So it's amazing now that we'll do the counter, Jason Shron,
Thank
that
you.
boom,
Yeah.
that you can, that as a kid, I would like, there's Athearn, and I think at one time I didn't even know there was a guy named Irv Athearn, and it
Uh-huh.
was his company. When I was little, I didn't think about it. So
Yeah.
now we see all that stuff and get to actually watch and listen to those people tell us about their companies.
It's amazing that I can just reach out to people on their contact us page and they actually respond.
And they
I mean,
respond. Yeah.
granted, there's a lot of people who don't respond, but the people who do are super nice, you know? And you just get connections. Like some people it's one and done, and then some people you kind of exchange information and you keep in touch, and then they help you move on, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very cool how that works.
Now, and you do mostly HO, is that right? Are you HO?
100% HO.
100% HO.
Yeah. I built a garden loop in my front yard, but it's kind of, I wouldn't call that transforming me into G scale. That's too expensive for me.
I think about G scale a lot, and I've reviewed some things. I did build a loop, kind of like what you're talking about, in my backyard. Oh, 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and I still have it. But yeah, G's running a real railroad if you do it outside.
Yeah,
You
it is.
you have the same situations with roadbed and track maintenance, and I mean we talk about having to clean the rails on our HO stuff, but out there it's
Yeah.
the
I
squirrels of
do better.
there's it's crazy, yeah, that there's a lot to it. So it's a whole different thing, but very cool. Anytime I see something G scale like a big diesel or whatever, like Bachman announced a big GE.
Oh, they like a dash something.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I got to have one of those. That'd be very cool. Yeah.
yeah. So, if you don't mind, could you run us through the process of how you go to reviewing a model? Do you buy those company money, or does different brands kind of send you stuff?
It is kind of all over the place. Companies, I can request models. We don't buy them. There's not like a budget to buy models to review things. That I request things, or companies can come to me and say, hey, we're bringing this out, and we'd like to send these to you for review. There's things that I buy that reviewers buy because they want to have it, and it's something they're interested in, and that'll end up in the magazine. I think August we did Rio Grande was the theme, and I had that Coachyard brass Rio Grande steam generator, and of course they did not give us a brass
Yeah.
model. That I bought that because I'm a big Rio Grande fan, and I
Uh,
thought it would be fun to get to share it, because again, it's one of those, where else are you ever going to see that?
yeah.
So it's a combination of those kind of things, of either somebody can come to me and say, this has been announced and it's coming out, and I'd like to review it because, like, either I kit bashed one way back, or I have experience with the prototype, like our Chicago Northwestern set of Cato bi-level cars. Justin Sobek over in the St. Louis area reviewed them. He works with Missouri Department of Transportation, and at one time was on some of those Chicago bi-level commuter cars and
Mhm.
did things. So he had some firsthand experience and interest in them. So it's kind of connecting both, and there are times you get something where it's like, I don't know anything about this,
Yeah.
but we've got it for review, so let's find out what information's out there. And that can be amazingly fun at times too, because I'll get a model that I'll think, oh, I'm not that interested in that railroad, or this isn't really, but then you start reading about it and you can really get hooked on something. And
Yeah.
then, so that whole learning process or that discovery makes for a great review too, of finding things out. So that's kind of how a lot of those things come to me, is either someone approaches me and says, I have this and I'd like to review it, or can you get that for me so we can review it?
Yeah.
I've got like a pool of reviewers that, either between the scales they participate in, the eras they like to model, or the railroads they're interested in, like I'll know, okay, if this in scale Santa Fe thing is coming out, this is probably a guy I could approach and say, hey, would you be interested in it? So that's how that process kind of gets going on
Yeah.
the review things.
And just like you're saying, you get into things that you don't expect that you'll like.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I saw in Train World the Rapido F40PH-2Ds. Again, I model the Pennsylvania area. I picked two of those things up and they look great, you know? Then I
Yes.
just pre-ordered their M420. You don't realize what you're going to get into. It's very
Oh, and you don't
strange
know. Yeah.
world.
Yeah, and that's a part of the fun of model railroading, I think,
Uh,
is that constant learning about new railroads, different eras, different, whether it's freight cars, locomotives, passenger trains, that I'm always amazed when I think, well, I thought I knew a lot about that railroad, but man, did you know this? And isn't that fascinating? And suddenly there's this whole new thing. And that's the same with collecting models. As you discover, did you know this company used to make this, or they had this, and you get off on this collecting, whatever stuff. So
Yeah.
it's amazing how there always seems to be something new and different, both with railroads and model trains.
Yeah, and exactly. I never thought that anybody would convince me to pay all that money for a bus and then Shron to add to the counter. I just ordered the Rapido bus, so
Yeah,
God knows, it's
those
not
are
even just
cool.
road. What?
They are very cool.
They
Yeah.
are. I can't
Oh,
wait
it's
to see it.
amazing. Yeah.
I've never seen one in person. My only thing, if he's watching this video, what if you made a battery powered version? Because I see why it would make a lot more sense to do hardwire. And you're probably not going to sell as many battery ones, which I understand why you wouldn't sell it if you're not going to sell any. But I have a 4x6, and I would I use it on there, or I could take it, set it down for an open house at a club layout or on a modular layout, just kind of take it around where you don't really have the opportunity to drill through the whole layout and put it permanently there. So I don't know. I thought that would be.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, a little battery powered. Yeah, I think that, and that's one of the things. A lot of times people say, "Where do you think the hobby's going? What do you think's going to change?" And I feel like you've heard of the dead rail operating, where you're not going to have power in the tracks, and that maybe there'll be self-contained, power in the models. I'm interested to see how and if all of that develops, which again is one of those. Model railroading always seems to be changing, the sound and the control over lights and things that we have now. We didn't have anything like that. I mean, there were some early attempts at things from time to time, but boy, what suddenly exploded in the late 90s to around 2000 is now just standard is amazing. So it always makes me wonder what will be out in 10 years or 20 years from now that I'll think, wow, I never could have even imagined. Because as a kid, a locomotive that, all the different lights work and the horns and the sounds and controlling all of that would be just like, that's incredible. And yet it's like, oh no, everybody does that.
I wouldn't be surprised if within the next 10 years we have a working dynamo and cylinder cocks on an HO scale engine,
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
That's what, I don't know if this is just me, but I've always thought of my uneducated mind in a way that you could make HO scale cylinder cocks work. And I mean, I don't know, take some brass tubing and kind of fit it in there.
It looks like you got two projects. You're going to do the battery powered bus for Jason. And then now you're going to work on this project for him. So yeah, I
I'm
think
going to be a Rapido employee. Gonna make
there you go.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
No. Cool.
So now you do the newsletter for your club, is that right?
No, so I can't take credit for that at all.
Oh, okay.
There's a guy named Paul Welsh, and that's his thing. He's really good at it. He's really good at that newsletter. He writes articles about local history. A lot of guys from the club, including myself, contribute to that. But he's a really knowledgeable guy about, obviously not just the newsletter, but he's great with modeling. And I believe he's a retired engineer. He worked on the Rio Grande for a while. Rio Grande, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the orange one. He worked on the Orange Railroad.
The Orange Railroad?
Yeah, Rio Grande. Call it that because Rio Grande's too hard to pronounce.
Rio Grande.
Rio Grande.
No, I think if it's Taco Bell, it's Rio Grande. But yeah, I think this is an.
You need to explain it to me in terms of Taco Bell, okay? Now I get it.
Yeah. If this was a burrito from Taco Bell, it would be a Rio Grande. This is an Athearn Jeep 40-2, so it's Rio Grande. Rio Grande.
I'm sure the Athearn people would love to see their model wrapped in a burrito.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Cool. Well, I mean, where do you see yourself going in the future? Do you want to kind of stay with this until you get uninterested, or do you kind of see yourself moving on to something else very soon?
I don't. I've always been interested in trains. So it's like I don't see that being like, okay, yeah, I'm done. I've seen everything.
Well,
I'm
not
finished.
uninterested in trains, just wanting to move on to something else.
I don't know. This has been to get the opportunity to work from home, to get to pursue both the monthly magazine that works on contemporary news stuff,
Hmm.
and now to be fortunate enough to do the quarterly that talks about older trains, which is my other interest. That it's yeah, I I say to when I've talked to Kevin Daly often, and I'll say, this is just incredible to have this opportunity to get to do train stuff, and that's what he does. He works
Hmm.
on train stuff too. So it is like I've always said, find what you like to do, and try to make that into your career or job. And that's
Absolutely.
kind of the path I've followed, and it works out well. But no, I'm in a fun place now that I really enjoy, have a lot of good people that I work with, and again, the hobby just continues to, meeting up with people like Lionel Strang and the
Hmm.
Modeler's Life folks and all that, you just meet more people, and it just continues to make the hobby fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a modeler's life got classified as a cult. I'm not getting to that point. Hmm.
Well, what's so neat about it is, so many of the shows, we do talk about trains and stuff,
Uh-huh.
but a lot of times we're off on some crazy topic about this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
It's like when I talk most of the time texting and on the phone, like with Lionel throughout the week and things, we're talking about old music from like the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
old TV shows,
Uh-huh.
movies. We rarely talk about trains. We're probably talking about, so did you like Columbo better than the Rockford Files, of
Uh-huh.
old like TV shows and
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Again, it's funny how you meet people because of a certain reason, but then, it kind of
Yeah.
goes on from there.
And when I interviewed him, he asked me some questions and he recorded the conversation. And I'm gonna be on an all-star hour. But the point I'm saying that is, I'm gonna interview Gordy Robinson in sometime next week. I don't even know. We agreed on Monday, but I
Oh,
haven't told him yet because we agreed this morning. But I haven't told him that I just found out I can't make Monday, so I'll have to have that conversation after we're done here. But he's the guest right after me on the all-star hour. So
Gordy is a great guy,
yeah.
and he is. I signed the petition for him on. He's wanting to run in the NMRA, and
Mhm.
he's a big supporter of that. I've helped him with the NMRAX. I've done a number of and that's such a neat thing. The live weekend shows that he does, where
Yeah.
guys get an hour to get to talk about what they're working on, and
Uh-huh.
that's a lot of fun. I mean, those weekends and to watch those shows, and get to learn those things, and especially with the pandemic stuff right now, has been a great,
Yeah.
getting these presentations and getting some of that contact with other railroaders. But yeah, Gordy's a tremendous guy. You'll have a great
Yeah.
interview.
But I made the promise out there that if he wins, I'll join the NMRA. So
See, now you've got to join before,
so I can
because
vote.
you got to vote. I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of those you can't complain about it after the fact, or
Yeah.
you got to. In fact, I joined the NMRA this year. I had been a member off and on over the years. I joined this spring because I'd been participating in those NMRAX
Yeah.
convention things, and I felt like I was enjoying it, doing a lot with that. But then I felt bad that I wasn't. I should be also supporting the organization as well as participating in those NMRAX virtual conventions. So
Yeah.
yeah, I joined this summer, and yeah, you ought to look into it, because then you can vote and you can actually say whether or not you had anything to
Yeah.
do with it all. Yeah.
So I don't know if you made it all the way through the live chat I had with Aaron, and I don't blame you because I tried to rewatch the whole thing and I just couldn't because we got on to talking about all these random things. But one topic that we came up with, I don't even know how far through this was. We were talking about renaming the NMRA, the INMRA, the International Model Railroad Association, because there's the NMRA and like the Australia divisions
Mhm.
and the UK divisions, and it's all just the same NMRA. So I mean,
Yeah, it is, and I don't know enough about the organization, but yeah, being the national
mm,
model railroad organization, I would assume national refers to the US. But yeah, no, they're in Canada, Gordy's in Scotland, like Marty and some of our friends are down in Australia. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean it's a worldwide thing, but
Yeah.
I mean it's a very good organization. It's done a lot for the hobby.
Uh-huh.
I know everybody, it's one that really people have either super positive or super negative, or they like this or they don't like that, or why don't they do this. And it is a tough thing because you can't be everything to everybody, but the idea that the organization is there
Hmm.
and what it is, trying to provide, and that base that it gives, I think that is important. And I think that's why I wanted to join, to support, because of being involved in the NMRAX things. Like I probably won't go or be that much involved in local things here in Missouri. But
Yeah.
because I was doing the stuff online and that, I felt like, well, I should be part of this, not just, oh yeah, I walk in and I'm a guest at it, but I'm not really a member. And
Hmm.
it's like, well, no, I should take part and, help support. So,
And just like you're saying, people either love it or they hate it, and there's no reason why. Nobody really can back up their opinion. I feel like. I
well,
feel
and
well.
I think it's a thing about the hobby, and I think
Uh-huh.
you can find that with about anything, whether it's
Yeah.
music or different kinds of food. People, oh, I don't like Chinese food, or I don't like Italian food, or whatever.
Hmm.
That And it's like, well, what's the reason? It's
Yeah.
all, I think when you get to things that are a personal preference, or something that's more of a leisure activity, that, well, I do this for fun, that people get very opinionated. It's got to be perfect, it's got to be right. I think that's why you get frustrated with certain models. Why didn't this color come out perfectly like I thought it was going to be? Because it is a toy, it's a passion thing, it's something you're
Yeah.
interested in. You never pull a trash bag out of the box and go, this just isn't the black or white color that I expected these hefty
Yeah.
bags to be. What's the deal here? I'm not
Uh-huh.
happy. But when you pull out a model and go, well, I thought the stripe was going to be just this much thinner, it's like, how many
Uh-huh.
times do you get that upset over, a
Yeah.
box of hamburger helper? But
Mhm.
it's because of that passion thing. And I think that's what drives either that, hey, really gung ho, or, oh, don't even talk to me about that, I don't like that. That,
Mhm.
again, it's because it's more of a passion thing.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's kind of all I had.
Well, cool. Well, we've got to do this again, because I want to do a Broadway throwdown with these F units sometime. So
Mhm.
we
And
will
I'll
schedule
I'll bring
another.
out my Challenger and I'll go through the documentation and I'll talk about how great it works now. I promise.
Yeah. Well, there we
Oh,
go.
there
There we
we
go.
go.
We'll do it again. So do I get to do the?
Oh, you know what? I felt too awkward asking Aaron to do that live. So
Yeah.
we skipped an interview and then I forgot to do it with Heath. I talked to Heath on Friday and I forgot to do it. But we're gonna restart it. We're gonna rekindle the fire, okay?
Okay.
I have another camera, so I'm skipping, okay?
Is that
Three.
right?
Huh? Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay.
What you gotta stick your thumb over.
Am I there?
Yeah, and then 3, 2, 1. It's not the middle finger.
Everybody's got to have a catchphrase. That's very good. Well, it was
I don't know.
awesome.
We'll try to think of something better in the future, but for now, this is what we have.